A very warm welcome to this very special session on the Development and Climate Days 2025. My name is Aditya. I'm the director of the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center. And I'm very pleased that all of you are joining us today. For those of you who are milling around on the sides, grab a seat and most importantly, grab a postcard which is on the seat. This is a very special postcard because this is your ticket to get drinks after this session. So don't ignore it. Like usual COP paraphernalia, Paul is going to explain how postcards will lead to drinks later on. I'm hoping if I say drinks enough time, people will come from the side of the room and actually take the chairs here. We're already running a bit late, so I'm going to kick off. So most of you will know that the Development and Climate Days is a very special event, one that bridges issues of climate and development. And they were started many, many years ago by Salim ul Haq and was strengthened by Pablo, both of who are not with us today, but their spirit lives on through the Development and Climate Days. And they were started at a time when the COPs did not really focus on climate adaptation, even less so than they do now. And therefore, it was Salim Bhai's attempt to center stage the key issues of the most vulnerable at every COP. This year, we decided to do the Development and Climate Days online. Usually, it happens in the middle weekend of every COP, so it would be happening now. But given the exorbitant expense of hosting the event and also traveling to Belém, we decided that it would be much more inclusive, much more judicious to host an event online, also because the middle weekend of this COP was scheduled for a big mobilization of indigenous groups on issues of the environment, and we didn't want to compete with that really important mobilization. The event took place on the 30th of October. It was a grand success. Almost 1,000 people registered for the Development and Climate Days online. We had 3 fantastic plenary sessions and 12 very focused thematic sessions that were exploring 3 key themes. One was on locally led adaptation, one was on finance, and one was on innovation for transformation. The Development and Climate Days is run jointly by the International Institute for Environment and Development, the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center, the Dan Church Alliance, the Global Resilience Partnership, the Foreign Ministry of the Netherlands, and the Wellcome Trust. And over the next 55 minutes or so, we're going to revisit a little bit about what happened in the online session, but also take the discussion forward to see how the Development and Climate Days and the deliberations that took place there link with what's happening in the negotiations. But to kick things off, I'm going to invite Jesper to welcome all of you. Jesper, the mic's yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Resilience Hub. It's great to see everyone here today. It's nice and pasty, but for those of us who has been here for a bit longer, it's actually cooler now than it was a few days ago. So that's nice, yeah. And if you go along the concourse, it gets even cold in one place. So I was standing there today, and I was not longing home to winter. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, the sessions on the 30th of October were really good. The closing of those sessions left a little bit of a dark kind of. We're in for a tough period, and it's more important than ever that we work together. But that was also conveyed on the 30th, and it's conveyed definitely just looking around the room. It's a fantastic to see everyone here and also online. I'm particularly pleased that you are here at the Resilience Hub because all the things that you mentioned we stand for. It's about collaboration. It's about working together. It's about highlighting what needs to happen on the ground, the locally led adaptation solutions, the finance to those, the financing of resilience, and the doing things together in community. So I think that's all the time I'm going to take because I know you have something really cool waiting. So I'll just hand the mic back to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Jesper, thank you, and thank you to the Resilience Hub for hosting us this evening. I'm now going to invite 2 of my victims, May and Lillian, to take their seats on the stage. and I am going to be now speaking to you live from the studios of the Adaptation Broadcasting Network with another edition of Hard Talk, COP edition, where I'm going to grill May and Lillian about the Development and Climate Days. May, beginning with you, why the hell should we care about the Development and Climate Days? What's so special about this? Why are we banging on about this?
Thank you, Aditya. It's like my 10th hard talk that I've been with you on, so thank you for the hard questions. So why should we care about the Development and Climate Days? I think a lot of you already talked about the things, Jasper and you. Why Development and Climate Days matters? Because we're in a climate where the development sector is facing so many challenges, and we need more space for collaboration now more than ever, and really trying to seek the opportunities to find points where we can collaborate rather than the differences in the ways that we work. So those are really important. But why does DNC Days matter? I think that the COP is a space that is overstimulating. There's so many pavilions each year. There are so many events that you want to attend, so many people that you want to meet. And there's not really a space for reflection and actually having a conversation with people about what you've just heard and questioning some of the things as well about what you've heard. So I think the DNC Days offers a space for us to pause and get to know one another, but also really challenge ourselves and be honest about what we've learned and what we're hearing and what should be challenged. So that's why DNC Day met.
All right. Lillian, at a time of resource scarcity, isn't an event like the DNC Days a huge luxury? Why does it matter?
Yeah, just building on what May has said, I think in all the rooms we've walked around since we all came to COP30, everyone has been talking about communities, putting communities at the center, putting communities at the fore. It's become such a common narrative. We need to put communities at the center and at the fore, yeah? And there's a new terminology that is going to come. But for the Development and Climate Days, we don't just put communities at the center and at the fore. We invite them to the room, and this is not tokenism, because they come in to listen, we learn from them, and we dive into the solutions that they're putting out there. And that is why the Development and Climate Days really, really matter, because at the end of the day, it's about the people who are most affected by the people, and by the changes in the climate realities. So DNC really matters because it gives the power to the people.
Lillian, if both of you are saying that DNC Days is the best thing since sliced bread, tell me about one aha moment that you had on the 30th of October when you were participating in the Development and Climate Days online.
Yeah, to be really, truly sincere with our audience here, there were several aha moments, and I really don't know why you want us to pick one. Yeah, but it's okay, you'll have your way. So for me, the aha moment was during session, I think 5A, where we were unpacking how trust-based grants giving needs to look like. And someone said something really important. They said that we need to unlearn a lot of things and move back to co-creation. And that sat really deeply with me, because really and truly, we cannot keep using the same tactics for a landscape that has totally changed, for an extremely new reality. So it is really important that we start to rethink the ways in which we approach the climate conversations. We need to go back to the drawing book because the landscape has changed totally.
Tell us in a line, what is trust-based grant giving, and why was it being discussed at the DNC Days?
Yeah, I want to define it in a very simple way. It is a kind of mechanism that allows funders to build together with the people and not, for the people, in a nutshell. To build together with the people and not for the people.
Yeah. May, can you back up your tall claims of DNC days being the bee's knees by telling us about one really pithy aha moment?
Okay, so I was also very struck by the trust-based grant giving session. And for me, questions like that, what is trust-based grant giving? We hear it a lot. We throw it around this jargon. And DNC Days is the kind of space where you can really unpack it. So that's like an aha moment for me. What is trust-based grant giving? But I have a quote from the closing plenary of the DNC Days, actually, where my colleague Lena Yessen, who is very active in the negotiation space for LDC, she said, we're talking a lot about the GGA indicators, but we have to remember that indicators are not going to protect lives. And that is an aha moment, because when we're talking about the GGA indicators, we're talking about very technical things, getting lost in the weeds about what is the right indicator, what is standardization, how do we measure adaptation accurately. But really, while those things are important, we need to just get back to the basics and think, why are we actually doing this? Why are the indicators actually linking to the things that we ultimately care about, which is protecting lives, making sure that the people that are needing to adapt and at the front lines of climate change are at the front and center?
We'll see in a minute whether the audience thinks that really was a genuine aha moment or not. So we'll get to that in a second. May, while you have the mic, tell me about one real change that you think will come out of the DNC days. Speak about your own experience. One tangible, something that you're going to do differently.
Okay, so I'll tell it respond it in a different way. So one of the things that we've discussed over and over at DNC Days over the years is about how do we actually do locally led adaptation. And as IED, that is an intermediary, what does that mean? And for us, we've reflected on that a lot over the years at DNC Days. And for us, it's about changing our institution so that we have more ethical partnerships, that we have systems that enable our partners to have access to funding in an equitable manner, that we are respecting them as equals, that we are not setting the agenda and they are making decisions alongside with us. And DNC Days over the years has had conversations like this over and over again. What does it mean to do LLA? And I think because of DNC Days, IED and partners have been reflecting on how do we actually action LLA? And we have launched a publication just this year that is about what are actions that funders and intermediaries can take that are LLA aligned. And these aren't very sexy because they're like, how do we do contracts differently? How do we ring fence money to make sure that it gets to people who need it the most? But they are very practical solutions, and DNC Days has really enabled that to happen.
That's interesting. So it wasn't just hot air. There were some real nuts and bolts improvements in how we do things that DNC Days has contributed to. But Lillian, did everything go swimmingly, or would you do something differently next year?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, or maybe let me approach it differently. Each one of us has a poison. My poison is music. I don't know your poison, right? Could be drilling people, right? Yeah, but for some it's music, for some it's art, and it was very good to see the DNC embracing these creative elements, especially during the plenary sessions. But I think it would be even more fantastic if we can lean into these creative elements of art during the parallel sessions, because then it makes the people engaged throughout and truly immersed in the conversation. Yeah, so technology.
in the true spirit of the DNC days, we have a creative surprise for you at the end of this session as well. So sit at the edge of your seats. Okay, which was your favorite session and why? And don't say trust-based thanks, whatever. Grant giving, you already said it twice.
I was actually going to say trust-based grant.
Okay, you can
Say
say
it.
it. Say it.
Yes, for the reason that we unpack the jargon around what is trust-based grant giving. But there was another aha moment in that session because there was a colleague of mine from Avena Foundation who just boiled trust-based grant giving down to the basics. She said, empathy is at the heart of trust-based grant giving, and we work with people to try to understand their needs from all over the world. And listening and empathy are actually just foundational to making sure that you can actually be on the same page and make sure that the grant meets the needs of the communities that you're working with. And I think in this development sector, we're always getting lost in jargon and finding something innovative and the next big thing. And ultimately, there are some foundational things like humanity, listening, trust. Those are things that matter the most. And if you really listen, then you can do great things.
Lillian, which was the worst session you attended? No, I'm joking. Which was your favorite session?
Am I allowed to be biased?
I guess so.
Yeah, you don't have an option. But yeah, the session that stood out for me was the session I facilitated. Not because I facilitated it or because it was hosted by Dan Chachid, right? Yeah, but it was session 3B. It was on advancing models for effective and efficient climate finance. And it stood out for me because from when we hear about climate finance, the conversation is usually about the quantity of finance. But this session flipped the script and it unpacked the quality of finance. And listening to the conversations from the communities drawn across various corners of the world, both were agreeing on two things, or they were saying two things. That one, they want both quality finance and quantity finance. However, we are so fixated on advocating for one side of the equation. We know which side, and it keeps making very little progress. So perhaps we need to turn to quality finance. Maybe we can make progress. Okay. And then the second thing that the communities were saying is that for adaptation finance to really work for them, it needs to be flexible, adaptable, and responsive to their needs. So yeah, that is why that session stood out for me. Thank you.
Well, that's a pretty convincing answer. Since you set the trend of being biased, I also attended a really good session in which I was also speaking, which was on multi-level governance of risk. And it was a session focused on the water at the heart of climate action initiative, which attempts to link satellite-based data with local action on the ground. And the session was really focused on how do different agencies working at very different scales, with different incentives, different epistemic viewpoints, different expertise all come together to work on a complex project that's really taking a global initiative, which is early warning for all, and turning it into tangible action. All right, now it's the time for all of you to grill May and Lillian. But push them. Tell them that their answers weren't convincing. Ask them about what we are planning to do for DNC Days next year, or what we should do for DNC Days next year, based on what we did this year. Share some of your own reflections if you've participated in the Development and Climate Days this year or in previous years. And please let there not be a silence of death when I turn to the audience. Someone break the silence quickly. Christina.
Thank you so much. I love DNC Days this year, but I'm wondering if the plan is to keep it online next year, because it did allow more people to participate and maybe was more equitable in that sense. But I also did miss the conversations, the contact, the friendships that develop at DNC Days in the past. So I'm wondering what the thoughts are on that. Thanks.
I don't think we've taken a decision yet. every year we try and see how much financial support we have for the development and climate days, what the COP is looking like. So it'll depend on that. I think all of us agree that in an ideal world, a big inclusive in-person event is best. But we'll just have to see if that's possible next year or not. Anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree. We haven't made a decision, and we see the benefits of both the online event, which is more inclusive. We had lots of participation, and people that don't usually participate in DNC days join DNC days. So that's really beneficial. But yeah, the connections, the slowing down from the COP and the reflections, those are the things that we really missed, and that's why we're excited to have this 1 hour or more of actually getting to know each other and reflecting from DNC days. So maybe this model, if it works, is something that we can continue to pursue, but we welcome any feedback from the people that participate in DNC days.
We would be, if we have a COP31 host, we might know whether it's possible to do something.
Please also introduce yourself as you ask the question.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvie Wabbs. I'm from the FAO, and FAO has been a long-standing partner and fan of DNC Days. And well done for continuing the process. And we've been learning a lot between virtual events and in-person events. And this year, indeed, it's testing a new ground. Because if you remember during the COVID days, we had a full virtual event, but that was clashing. It was during the COP, and it was clashing with all the birthing events all around. And so we didn't have the attendance that we had at this time, DNC Day, taking place before COP. So that's a very interesting opportunity. And I think we'll keep DNC Day is exactly showing the way of adapting to this fast-changing world and the way of working, including in-person and virtual. And this inclusivity is at the center of the people-led adaptation action. So really, congratulations for keeping going that way. My suggestion for the next DNC Days is to drill down further on the adaptation and resilience work across sectors and systems by collecting the suite of solutions which are a bit a contre-tendance of the 100 indicators that we have in adaptation, but to have a look at what are the existing basic core solutions in adaptation and resilience that are needed to really move forward, and which are risk and impact management. And we have many, and we've been discussing many in the GNC days, and these are early warning system, nature-based solution. This year, social protection is coming forward, resilient infrastructure, and so on and so on. Blending humanitarian action, development action, and climate actions all together, plus the DRR, of course, around the comprehensive risk management. And I think we could do that and see how unpacking that with the communities, with the voices of the local actors, because everything must be context-specific and meeting their priority needs. That's a suggestion. Sorry for being a bit long.
Not at all, Sylvie. Thank you. Of course, the FAO's partnership is, of course, recognized of the DNC days. I think we have time for one more comment or question. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mikkel. I'm from Slum Dwellers International. I actually don't have an opinion on online or in person. I think there are advantages of both. What I've already sensed from this is my first DNC day in person, and the one online was my first DNC day online. Like bringing this conversational format much more into all the events that we do in these settings. I think that that's sort of a takeaway I'm getting here. I think there's already been more conversation here than in the 10 sessions I attended the last 3 days. So yeah, just kudos to you, and I think it might be the reason why we have so many people. So maybe we should all go back when we organize our events from now on and mainstream this into it.
Thanks, Mikkel, and thank you for giving us a LinkedIn headline to recap this event. All right, a big round of applause for my victims, May and Lillian. And I'm going to now welcome the next set of people. Now, we looked back at the DNC days that took place. Now we want to look at what's happening at the moment in COP, how that links to what we discussed at the Development and Climate Days, and what's going to happen in the future. So I'd like to invite Anne Simonsen, who's the Director of Climate for the Danish Industries. I'm going to invite Joshua Amponsen from the Green Africa Youth Organization. I'm going to invite Patricia Akulo, who's a negotiator. Please come and join us on the stage. And I'm hoping like hell that Martin Vogel is somewhere. There he is, who's also going to join us. Great. Big round of applause. Thank you all for giving us your precious time. I know so much going on at COP, especially with the negotiations, so it means a lot. So we're going to try and extract maximum value over the next few minutes from you. Maybe I'll kick off with Patricia. Patricia, what are the important issues being discussed on the adaptation and development agenda? What is standing out for you? What are some of the exciting things that are happening over there? Should be on, I think.
Good evening. Yes, thank you. I'm Patricia Roy from Uganda, also from the Ministry of Finance, which is the NDA that deals with the financing entities. And that means I can easily allude to both what's at the COP and what is actually function at country level. So within the negotiations, we are looking at matters related to adaptation fund, and I'll speak to that and also speak to the reports of the operating entities of the financial mechanism. So what is happening with the adaptation fund? We are having quite a sticky negotiation on 3 items that the developed country parties want to push jointly, and that is the transition of the adaptation fund and the governance arrangement, and then the fifth review. It is in our interest that we have a smooth and quick transition of the adaptation fund to serve the Paris Agreement as soon as possible, but we are having a challenge of progressing positively on that particular item because there's a push to have all the 3 items which I've mentioned to move concurrently, and means a failure on one item drags the entire 3 items, and therefore that means we shall not have quick replenishment to the adaptation fund, and therefore that means adaptation actions in developing countries definitely get subcharged. And the report we have from the adaptation fund indicates that we have over 700 million worth of projects that have been submitted to the fund that needs to be financed. And for the financing available cannot support all those, and the pledging or the process to collect more funds for the adaptation fund will happen on Monday, and the board only approved the target of $300 million. So if you're having project pipeline of worth 700 million, then you're having available balances in the fund, which I cannot remember right now, and then we're having a ceremony on Monday that will mobilize only $300 million. It gives us a bit of a worry. There are also certified emission reduction receipts that have been confirmed worth $78 million, but have not yet been provided by the developed country part, the donors, sorry. So it does not quickly give us a good future for the fund, but we just can hope that it would get better.
Great.
Can I just mention about the reports of the operating, the funds to the operating mechanism? From the negotiations, we are having a bit of pushbacks on paragraphs that push for more financing or mobilization. So again, it gives us a not so very bright journey in this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that really interesting insight into what's going on there. Salim Bhai used to always underline that the DNC day should not take place in isolation from what's happening at the negotiations. So this is another one of his key things to push forward. I'll turn to Josh now, with whom I was joking that for the last 7 COPs, I've invited him as the youth representative on the panel. So Josh, I promise this is the last time I do that. But tell us, what are some of the exciting agendas from the perspective of the youth? What are you tracking? What are some insights that you'd like to share with us?
Well, thank you. And it's very great to be here. And I'm a big fan of Aditya and the work of IIED and DNC Days. This is my first COP where I'm not following negotiations at all, like zero. So I want to say that. It's the first COP that, and I've been going to COP since 2016. And I think this is also the first COP I believe that has had the highest human elements to it. And this is because of course, all the ambition you all brought to the space, but also about the possibility for so many people in Brazil and indigenous communities in the region to really be part of it, not just in the negotiations room, but in all the different houses and spaces that have been created in this town. So that is really fantastic. From the youth movement, and this will be probably the last time I represent the youth movement for you, Aditya, but there are a few things that I want to share, and one of them, the main principal thing is hope. And the reason I say this is that when you made that joke about for 7 years we've been engaging at DNC days, and within those 7 years, every single year, there have been significant progress. But for some reason, we are almost locked up in cynicism when we think about this work. And I wanted to sort of pause, and instead of talking about whether the negotiations are going well or not, or whether we're going to get what we're going to get out of it or not, I wanted to pause to let all of us reflect on some of this progress so that we can actually keep hope alive. Because the moment we get stuck with our cynicism, we've already failed. And we need to be very aware of this. So from this community, and I'm going to share this because you will know this very well, from locally led adaptation principles being talking points, from that becoming actual principles that get developed, that get organizations to sign on to, that was progress. And we shouldn't forget about that. From when we thought that our legal system is broken and it cannot uphold the rights of future generations, it cannot uphold human rights. We are at COP today and we have a Climate Justice Day at COP. And the word justice is very controversial. It's very difficult language to use. And that's why most often we prefer to say equity in many spaces, because justice makes some people feel uncomfortable. And yet we are at COP, at a global gathering with all parties, or maybe some didn't show up, but all parties, and we are using the word justice. That is progress. Another thing I want to share is, of course, the ICJAO, the advisory opinion. This is the COP with the highest judiciary presence than any other COP. These are progress. So what I'm seeing from the communities I work with is that incredible force of hope that allowed them to wake up each day and to come and do this work. So I think for the DNC community, and for adaptation and resilience, right? This is also the first COP that I'm seeing that the language has gone beyond in adaptation and resilience for the purpose of protecting humanity and breaking it down to things that people actually care about. Heat, education, health infrastructure, human rights. I think all of this is significant progress because narrative is what drives everything we do. And I think we're getting those narratives right in these spaces. So from our community as a youth movement, from some of the local communities we work with in indigenous communities and locally led organizations, this is really driving some of the hope. It doesn't mean that the progress we have is enough, but reminding ourselves of that progress free us from the cynicism and allow us to keep pushing. Yeah.
Josh, thanks. Your energy and your optimism is infectious and very inspirational. Now, all of you know why I keep inviting him back to anything that I moderate. I'm going to turn to Anne Simonsen. Wanted to ask you about the role of the private sector in this COP. What are some of the agendas that you want to push? What are some of the things you're tracking? What do you see as the role of the private sector in supporting, strengthening the adaptation agenda, specifically in the negotiations?
Thank you for having me, and it's a big honor to represent the private sector here. Actually, I came directly from a meeting with our Brazilian host National Industry Association, where we were represented from all continents, all business associations from all continents, discussing what we see as the most important thing. I think that from a European perspective first, it's very important that we also have some kind of mechanism on mitigation. We meet at COPs and we discuss very important things, adaptation, climate finance and so on, but we need to do a better job on mitigation, else we are all in a pretty severe situation.
And I know that the EU chairmanship, Denmark holds it right now, and I of course know the people that work in our government is trying to push that forward in a way where it can be accepted. It's up to each country, but still, how can we make progress better? The second thing is adaptation. It is very important, but it looks different on different continents. For example, in my small country, Denmark, we have a lot of coastline, and we are frequently flooded to a large extent. But it is not something that are hampering our national economy yet. Other parts of the world see much worse situations. The problem about adaptation and finance and the private sector is there's no revenue stream once you made the investment. You can see that, for example, in green energy where you produce something, but you cannot see it in adaptation. So we need a fix that makes it possible for private capital to go that way. Therefore, we hosted together with large banks, global banks, and international capital funds, a couple of roundtables, a New York Climate Week and London Climate Action Week, where we tried to find out what mechanisms do we need from the international society to have real private investment, where you can still take the local perspectives really seriously. So that's what we need. And we presented those papers. They are public accessible. And we hope it's a help to see what do we need to actually move forward on adaptation finance. Last but not least, on adaptation, it also harms businesses all over the world when adaptation is not taken seriously. At the other hand, it's a business opportunity. And it can be difficult to acknowledge that, but if you look at it, the green transition globally, there the business societies in all our countries are the operating arm. It's businesses that do the investments. So we need to have that connex right.
Thanks a lot. Yes, and one keeps forgetting that overwhelming majority of spending on adaptation is still from the private sector, big and small both. Martin, turning to you next, give us some juice, give us some gossip. What are some of the contentious issues happening there behind the scenes?
Well, I think we have had the closing of the SBI in the subset today, and it was pretty clear that there are divergencies on most topics, and a lot of them, or all of them, except for one I heard, for Rule 16, were put to the next week under CMA. So for adaptation, that includes the global goal on adaptation, of course, where from a European Union perspective, I'm from Sweden, I'm part of the European Union negotiation team. It's a pivotal part of that package deal that we look forward to closing this COP on. So drawing a bit on what has been mentioned, we need that mitigation action as well and raise the ambition in line with science, of course. But that also addresses the needs of people that are already suffering from climate change today, and creating those links from these global processes down to the local environments, and creating the finance flows to the locally led communities so that they can draw on and invest that finance streams into early warning system and resilience building. I also believe that the NDC gap needs to be addressed in a way that we take that gap and turn it into ambition next year and implement it in a way that also serves the people on the ground and build a community of practice and cooperation on a global level to address the need for climate change, of course. So I think we are at a pivotal moment where we must send that signal of a functioning multilateral system to the world, that countries are in fact able to address what most people, I think, are beginning to lose faith in, that this fora is actually able to address the very existential threat that is climate change to everyone. Also for developing countries, but also for my own country, Sweden, that would suffer immensely from increased sea level rise, of course. So I think adaptation is high up on the agenda and should be high up on the agenda for every country. And we should also address that we, of course, come from different circumstances and different national settings. And that dialogue, I think, should be introduced between in a donor scheme when it comes to international aid, where we introduced the climate aspect, resilience building. It should also be introduced in multilateral development banks and the bank schemes. Not to forget 2.1c, to transition all finance flows from fossils and through resilience building and creating those opportunities for a new sort of tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
No, thanks a lot. And I think what Martin says directly corroborates what Josh said, that we have to be mindful about the progress that's being made. There was a time when there was barely a whisper on adaptation happening in the negotiations, let alone negotiators using terms like locally led adaptation. So I think while we have a long way to travel, substantial progress has been made as well. Again, I'd like to turn to the audience. You have youth representatives, private sector representatives, negotiators. This is your chance to ask the questions that you want to. And again, please don't stress me out with an awkward silence. So someone please raise their hands. Awkward silence.
Should be. Okay. Thank you, Paul. So I'm Sasha Jatton saying from Climate Analytics Caribbean. I'm also providing negotiation support to the Alliance of Small Island States. And to Josh, I hope next year will be the year I could come to COP and not have to be part of the negotiations. You inspire me. So for DNC days, I think what's quite important is to note that having this format where you have an online session prior to COP and then have a session in person where you could reflect on what's happened, take a stock take, is quite important. At the DNC days, it was really important to share what is happening on adaptation practices, policies, sharing knowledge and best practices, which has informed negotiators and observers on how to approach the negotiations on adaptation finance, and so on. And I think that's quite important to have that before and to come here and reflect on what is the state of play and what can we do next week when ministers come. And I think this is quite important to get diverse perspectives and us come together and understand how can we ensure that adaptation is a priority, understand why adaptation, the urgent need for adaptation is here because of, the lack of mitigation ambition and action, right? It's not that adaptation is the only option, it is because we are in this space. And if we don't focus on adaptation now and understanding how that link between loss and damage, we have to understand it and also to share that sort of, I would say, socialize that with, government, with civil society, with youth as well, because I would say NGOs and civil society and youth are our biggest advocates, and they have to share and socialize the messages that we negotiators have to take, these very technical and political messages that we take in those rooms, and share that for people to understand why. And for this COP, I would say it's the first COP where you're seeing, it's in your face, why adaptation matters and who are the people most affected and why human rights is such an important part of adaptation. And I think that is amazing to see this come together here.
Thank you.
And yeah, so
that's really poignant. Thank you so much for that reflection. I'm going to go to Kirsten.
Yeah, I have a question around, Kirsten Dunlop from Climate Kick. Very happy to see the different arrangement of business and policy and the elements that we need to come together. I have a question for all of you on what you think would be the implications or should be the implications of the ICJ ruling as a ruling that in effect, excuse the pun, trumps the situation of negotiations and change agenda here. This is the highest court of international law. So how might we, or how do you see a necessity or an opportunity to change the way in which, in a UNFCCC concept dealing with environmental law and all of the discussions that we are having here, we need to shift gears to roll up hard into that overarching ruling? What does it mean for youth? What does it mean for business? What does it mean for the way in which we think about loss and damage funds? What does it mean for the integration of mitigation and adaptation? I know it's a hard question, but I would love your views.
Thanks, Kirsten. Quick reflections from the panel. Would anyone like to reflect on what Kirsten's asked? Well, Martin, please.
Yeah, I can start. I think it's a very interesting developing area of connecting the lack of ambition and lack of action to the legal sphere. And from a European Union perspective, we also see a lot of youth movement and civil society movement driving that into the legal courthouses and also winning some cases. And even if they don't win the cases, they reassemble and they hire lawyers to perfect their case. And I think that it's only going forward, this to also connecting policymaking to the youth movements and to the civil society voice. I think there's no turning back from that. I think in a perfect world, a statement from ICJ would have huge implications, but we have a national sovereignty, and we are in this from a bottom-up. I saw the red light blinking in the background. I didn't think it was for me. And we're in a bottom-up process, and we need to agree in consensus of what action are we able to agree together on. So that, of course, will differ from a statement from ICJ, for example, or from the demands from civil society that aren't bound by the same rules or the same game. But I think going onwards, I envision that these kind of perspectives will make their way into the negotiations and demand a greater space. And I hope that.
Any other, Josh?
Well, I'm going to say that it's so impactful, yet it's so tricky. And the reason I say that is the ICJO has so much life, and it could really quickly provide exponential opportunity for us to make quick progress. The challenge is, think of all the massive shifts that have happened in our world. When were women allowed to vote in certain countries? There was not a specific moment where all of it came down. It was sustained conversations, sustained demand, sustained pressure, sustained argument, and eventually you get it. When were some countries free from their colonial regimes? Sustained pressure, sustained demand. You fight, you fail, you go to war, you fail, eventually you win. Think of apartheid in South Africa. It's all sustained pressure. Now, the challenge with the ICJO is we work with some of the youth groups and we fund their work. And the challenge is our movement currently celebrate quick wins and put less effort on the implication of the win. And for me, this is why I say it's risky. We are very excited about the fact that there is a ruling. It's going to take an incredible amount of work for that ruling to really move from the probability of impact to actually become an impact. What that means is that you need to fund several movements, not one movement, not just the climate movement. You need to fund across human rights. You need to fund across education. You need to fund across healthcare. You need to fund farmer groups. They all need to have meaning in that ruling and be able to provide that sustained pressure, and then we would get it to somewhere. So for me, the fact that, again, this COP has judiciary presence, that is a sign. That is a sign. We're going to keep bringing judiciary in. And on a country level, we need to keep funding those who uphold accountability.
Right.
And those who uphold accountability are civil society organizations.
Yeah.
They are the youth movements. They are the farmer groups. So if we can really provide the financing to these groups to uphold that accountability and keep pushing and keep demanding, I think at some point, this will become a norm. You will be able to go to court and you have a ruling, and it's not a sentimental ruling. It is not a conceptual ruling. It is a ruling that actually commits companies to be able to really have that responsibility.
Great.
So I think the big call here is, how do we fund that at scale to bring life to this opportunity we have in front of us?
Thanks for that. Good. We are 10 minutes from drinks, so I am going to invite Dr. Tom Mitchell, who's the director of IIED, onto the stage to give us his reflections on the DNC days that have just passed and look ahead to see what really is the value of DNC days in the years to come. Yes, maybe so. We'll give a big round of applause to our panel and ask them to take their seats in the audience.
Aditya, thank you. It's always difficult to follow you. You have such an incredible style, which keeps everybody both on their toes and also moving through really nicely. So yeah, Tom Mitchell, I'm director of IID, and it's been a kind of great pleasure of IID to work alongside Red Cross, Red Crescent Climate Centre and many other partners to be involved in DNC Days now for 23 years, 22 years? Anyway, it's a long time. And I think what we've always cherished about DNC Days, as others were highlighting at the start, is this kind of space for reflection. It's a space for reflection, but it's also a space to, in some ways, regroup, think about tactics, think about strategy, because there's always been this link between DNC Days and community voice and what goes on in this process. And I think we owe a lot to Professor Salim al-Haq, the late Salim al-Haq, who was very much the architect of DNC Days. And what Salim was very passionate about was really connecting that sense of togetherness that comes from a broad community with actually trying to hack the UNFCCC system to get adaptation at the core. And I have a personal story of this. I'm going to say it very, very briefly, was that my first COP was in Montreal in 2005. And there was a lead up in 2000. For those of you who can remember back, and there may not be that many of you who are part of the process, but we were trying to think through how on earth do you get adaptation to be taken seriously? At that stage, it was kind of barely a footnote. And Salim was very much of the view that there needed to be a broader community, but there needed to be a broader community of people who really understood inside the process. And so in that lead up, Salim decided that he would hold late night tactical sessions in his little apartment, and that he would invite people in to this kind of round table in his apartment, thick with smoke at the time, with some whiskey around, and actually have a discussion about how to hack the system. And what I learned there as a relatively young, kind of green-eyed somebody interested in negotiations was that there were ways tactically to start putting feelers out and move ex-minister and that minister here, but very much a kind of a chess play. But the other dimension that I really take away from it, and where DNC Days has already come in, is that Salim had this real sense of passion of empowering and supporting young people in the process, young researchers, young negotiators. And with that, he said to me, and I remember this very, very clearly, he said to me, Tom, he said, you're the new generation of people we need. He said, I want you to go out and find 20 other people around your same age who really care about the process and start to really mobilize behind that. And we actually ended up having this informal network that we called the YMCA, the Young Minds on Climate Adaptation. And it was very much driven by Salim's original sense that there needed to be this very, very sense of tactical play. And we would take that into DNC Days. We did that in Nairobi in 2006, when the Nairobi Work Programme was actually agreed. And for those of you who remember back, it was really the Nairobi Work Programme that set in train the ability to now have adaptation on the lips of just about every process in this place. It's incredible, isn't it? Everything's being called adaptation and resilience, whether it looks like it or not. That kind of over mainstreaming is very much what we're seeing here. But it's that kind of sense of momentum that was built from those early days where DNC Days was really that kind of game planning day. I think we're in another moment, actually. I think we're genuinely in another moment where that ICJ advisory opinion has changed the game. But it's now way more complicated. There's so many more moving parts. And the ICJ advisory opinion is not just about the UNFCCC process at all. It's about international law, human rights law, customary law, and it kind of the list goes on and on and on. But to actually figure out from an adaptation, resilience, and loss and damage perspective, how to turn that into something, as Joshua was saying, something that really builds momentum, is that we need a new kind of system hack, a new network that we can really start to think and bring in different types of expertise, because it's a gift in many senses, but it's a gift that could easily be lost or dissipated if we don't build on it. So that sense of kind of funding and mobilization is really important. I think one where the DNC Days can be that moment where we continually reflect from different angles on the way in which this can happen. So that's kind of one big picture reflection. I think the second reflection from DNC Days itself is, and you see this up here, is actually the visual recorder of all of the different elements within D&C Days is that these are all different parts of that system, right? These are all looking at different lenses around what needs to change, what needs to happen, what are the next kind of tactical gameplays here to take locally led adaptation or adaptation and negotiations forward. So this is a kind of just a reflection back of all of those discussions, which gives you a sense of the richness and the breadth and the sense of, I suppose, bringing together different minds around this process. I think it's a real a sense of being able to put this out on social media and have discussions around it and so on is a really good record of the D&C Days. I think as we look ahead, this sense of continuing to have D&C Days being as inclusive as possible and possibly even more inclusive than we've had, but keep coming back into this process, reflecting on it, but also potentially in other processes too, is going to be a key consideration. And I think I want to just thank everybody who's made this process this year possible, right? Doing these online events and really thinking through how you can build the creative space is not an easy thing. And I think there's a lot of people around this room who've got a huge amount of creative talent in creating that space. And I think thank you very much for all of the work that you've done there. And for everybody who's played a part in this event too, I think that's really valuable. Thank you. I think just a couple of other things before I close, and I know drinks are being laid out, and it's that time of the day on a Saturday night where you're thinking, whoa, and then you're also very tired. But I do have an important announcement to make about the Community-Based Adaptation Conference. So it's this kind of time of the year where we look ahead to 2026. And I think the Community-Based Adaptation Conference in some ways is even more important next year because locally led adaptation and how to do it in practice is now so core to the international agenda that this is the moment where the practitioners come together, really reflect on what success, what that kind of operational coding that May talked about, how to really make it work. So CBA, 20th anniversary of CBA, or CBA 20 we've got up to now, so nearly as old as D&C Days, right? For those of you who can remember back to CBA 1, any hands who was at CBA 1? Christina, very good, CBA 1 in Bangladesh. And Saqib, yeah, CBA 1. So here's the announcement. CBA 20 will be in Manila, week of May the 18th. And it's absolutely a delight of ours to already have local partners ready to host CBA. And I think those from the Manila Observatory here who are going to be a really key part of hosting, give us a wave. We're really looking forward to working with you. Thank you so much. But also the partners of the SDI network, PAXI as well, who will be part of that. And you know about CBA, that this is a different type of conference. You don't come and sit in rooms and watch panel sessions for 3 days. It's not like that. This is about being active. It's about embodied learning. It's about getting out into communities. It's about forging relationships. It's a truly different type of conference. So we invite you there. We also invite you to come and talk to us if you've got plans, ideas, thoughts, money. All of those things are very, very useful. Paul at the back is really key part of CBA. Please do go and chat to Paul if you want to play a role. We already have some of the organizations that are going to be playing a role with us there, but there will be many more. And I think what might even be more important too is if we do find that there is an outcome for the COP31 presidency, one of the candidates really wants to make LLA an absolute showcase of the presidency. So let's keep an eye on that and see whether or not we might get a decision next week. But it would be an incredible bridging moment into something where LLA becomes very prominent. So thank you so much, Aditya. The partnership with you and the team is phenomenal on this, and really do invite everybody to come and join us for a drink and think about D&C Days next year. Over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks a lot for that landscape level view. Just a couple more minutes. In the D&C Days, we had a graphic rapporteur who did this amazing cartoon, and today we have someone who's going to report back in a different way, in rap, if I can call it that. And we have Jan Young, who's going to come and report back to us in rap.
Thank you so much. Hi, how's everyone doing? Oh, okay. I forgot. This is nice. I go by the name of Jam Young. I work for a really awesome company called Event Wrap. We basically recap everything that you had. So I've been taking notes for the last 45 minutes on all the beautiful things that you guys informed me on and created. So if you have, feel free to take videos and talk to me afterwards while we enjoy a beverage. But thank you guys for having us. And whenever you're ready, DJ. Y'all feeling good? Y'all ready to get a drink, huh? Okay. Yeah. One person, one group, one rhyme. We will grow through adaptation and time. More hope, more thoughts, more minds. We will go through adaptation in time. When I say climate, y'all say change. Climate, climate. When I say DNC, y'all say days. DNC, DNC. Mic check 1 2 1 3. Here to represent the DNC days. Trying to make people's lives a little bit more easy. If we talk to them, then y'all will believe me through conversations, collaborations, trust-based grant-giving education, combining empathy, humility, and trust. Can't spell the last word without us. Yeah, it's about the people. The people working with data and the change equal. From October 30th, now the sequel. Gotta see the world for more than the peephole. Let's focus on the tangible differences. Using affluence and positive influence. As May Ong, she's really into it. Changing institutions and strengthening partnerships. Yeah, one person, one group, one rhyme. We will grow a little bit more through time. More hope, more thoughts, more minds. We will grow through adaptation in time. When I say climate, y'all say change. Climate, climate. When I say DNC, y'all say days. DNC, DNC. Gotta focus on the right adaptations. Make these spaces cooler. Balance quality and quantity. Ask Dillian, it's more than the moolah. Don't build for us, build with us. Working together creates a true surplus. Might be nervous like me on the stage, but challenging the landscape is how to turn the page. From the indigenous to the youth movement, we need real hope to keep on moving. Forget pessimism, ask Mr. Optimism. Progress is the key to keep our hearts honest when we need from freedom to keep inspiring. Even when the future agendas seem tiring, we need to fix in private sectors for money to help reach new levels in all different countries. One person, one group, one rhyme. We will go through adaptation one time. More hope, more thoughts, more minds. We will go through adaptation in time. Cause when I say climate, y'all say change. Climate, climate. When I say DNC, y'all say days. DNC, DNC. Ask the people, ask the moguls, ask Tom Mitchell and Martin Vogel. We will figure out the problems together. Hopefully we can change the climate forever. Raising the bar, crushing the standard. From panel to pander like Jasper Hornberg. By bringing in new expertise. Yo, let's rethink the past and start a lens for you and me. Let's reflect, not neglect. Together we can continue on this process. In indicators and institutions. Work one to build better for solutions. Yeah, cause one person, one group, one rhyme. We will go through adaptation and time. More hope, more thoughts, more minds. We will go through adaptation in time. I said when I say climate, y'all say change. Climate, climate. When I say DNC, y'all say days. DNC, DNC. Jit. All right.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. That was amazing. All right, Paul, you have some instructions for us on how we get wine.
Okay, I'm Paul. I work with Tom at IAD and May as well. I'm highly, highly conscious I am standing between you and a beverage celebrating the end of week one. But changing the climate is easy. Tackling climate change is hard, so why should it be easy to get a drink? All right, so when you came in, you probably got one of these, okay? If you don't have one, come and see me afterwards because you can't get a drink without it. Now, there are 6 different postcards. They all look similar, but they all have a different message on them, 6 different messages. So here's what you need to do to get a drink. You find somebody who has a message on their card that is not the same as yours. You go to the bar together. Hopefully you have an interesting conversation about what's on your card. You show the bartenders, you get a drink, everybody's happy. If you don't have a card, come grab one.